Hello there and welcome to let's get real here. It's take two, it's part two, whatever you want to call it, of this impromptu live stream with myself, Steve-O. We have a very, very good friend of mine, Dan, who voice messaged me this morning about his, he basically just said he's very frustrated with England and whatnot and just wanted to vent on a live stream on Elite FPL. And as I just mentioned in part one, which is going to go through pretty much the same questions. I'm sorry, Dan, I keep doing my Chris Tarrant impression. So, Dan, you hate the terminology international break. Can you explain why you hate that terminology?
Hate's a strong word, but it irritates me because it's almost like a bit of a derogatory terminology in a way, like, there's club football, there's international football, and there are some of us out there, believe it or not, in this day and age that actually follow our club and we follow our country, just like it was when I grew up. But yeah, I don't really feel like the real beef is with that term as much as it irritates me somewhat. It's actually more with the last two England performances, shall we say.
Well, I mean, as a non-international fan of international football fan, or more specifically a fan of England or a follower of England, whatever terminology you want to use, do you want to expand on what you mean by your frustrations with the last two performances from England?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, qualification's been sealed. Before we came on stream, I did think about it and I thought to myself, you were really happy with the way we played against Italy, where qualification was up for grabs and at stake, and there was really, a match to be had there against Italy. Obviously, we wanted to get revenge after the Euro 2020 final. But as much as I, enjoyed that performance, I did remind myself, what about away against Ukraine, where we drew 1-1, which was another insipid performance, another slow performance. And it was kind of a similar story over the last two games. I have to say, North Macedonia did play well yesterday. I don't want to just knock England. I do think they played really well. But the point being is that it's not just me. And I do take a bit of a pleasure in looking at a very well-known sports website after one of these England performances, because I know those people are just going to be saying the same things that I'm going to be saying and thinking as well, really. And there's a couple of comments. Some of them are pretty savage. I mean, relegated as a player, relegated as a club manager, relegated as international manager. The third point is obviously because of the Nation League. But all of these things are true. And I come back to it as well. Another stat there is like 200 minutes against two of the world's lowest ranked teams. We had 5 shots on target. And particularly against Malta on Friday, it was just, I think, like a lot of England fans, or at least a lot of people that are watching the games anyway, with some kind of level of interest, it's, why are we still playing Henderson when he's in the league that he's in? And he's at the age that he is. He did well last year in the World Cup, but let's be honest, he's not playing in a high quality league. Why are we still persisting with? And I'm going to turn on him now. I'm going to turn on Maguire because I think there's better options at centre back. I do think he's been really good for England in the past. I will stand by that. That 2018 World Cup, he was excellent. He was very good at the Euros, and he was solid enough at the last World Cup. So I will respect that. But there are other options there. And last night, as much as the penalty that given was just crazy, I don't really understand what Rico Lewis has done wrong. And he was one of the plus points of last night's performance. I thought Rico Lewis, he did well. And that's what these games should be about. Young players, enthusiastic, with Cole Palmer as well, getting a chance to have their, make their claim for the squad for next summer. But yeah, Maguire, his challenge on one of their players was more like a rugby tackle, which should be a penalty. So in a way, it kind of evened out, and he got lucky there. So and there's been other occasions as well when people want to talk about what he's done. But yeah, I think in more of a round to sort of summarise on this, it's just a frustration looking at, obviously, we all play FPL and we know the players on form. I'm not saying we could all be national team managers, but I think to myself, what has Sterling done wrong? Considering his record of 20, I think something like 20 something goals in 82 games for England. Okay, he's playing well for Chelsea. Why can't he get in the squad in these games and make a place for his sort of, stake his claim, so to speak? And what about Ward-Prowse as well? That's doing really well for West Ham, has been a bit of a differential at times in FPL this season. What has he done wrong to not even get in the squad? Yet you've got players like, I say, Henderson, Calvin Phillips, Maguire, these man that I just don't get it. And once again, the frustration, although he did kind of mix things up yesterday, and I have to say, Watkins didn't play well. He didn't really pass the audition. Saka didn't look great either. Like for Arsenal recently, he's not been on his top form. Grealish's end product was just not there. But yeah, it's just, I think obviously it's great that we qualified, but there are warning signs ahead of next summer. And I think that a few years ago there were low expectations and people really enjoyed like the World Cup 2018 and whatnot. But now we should be going into this tournament thinking that, anything less than getting to a final is failure, really.
Do you want to expand on the Watkins point of view? Because one of the reasons why I have no direct interest in England specifically, is just the simple fact that dates back to whatever manager it was. I feel literally like I am repeating myself, but whatever manager it was, they just weren't choosing the players from the likes of Birmingham, Norwich, Watford, whomever. Even though, despite the fact that they were performing a lot more better than the so-called players from the likes of Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, etc. And it was just frustrating from my point of view, where it's like, I'm just going to pick a name out of the hat, Grant Holt. Why aren't you picking Grant Holt? Why are you continuously persisting with the likes of, for argument's sake, Michael Owen or Alan Shearer, whoever? Why don't you give the player who's been scoring in every single Premier League game over the past 10 weeks an opportunity to perform with England in 2 international friendlies against Jamaica and Colombia, and just see what he can do? Now, obviously, Watkins was given an opportunity against North Macedonia. You said that he just flopped, basically. Why did he flop? A player who is clearly informed with Aston Villa. He is doing a job there in which he's scoring lots of goals, getting lots of assists. Why can't he fit into this England team? Or in specifically that game?
He just wasn't clinical in this game. There was particularly a chance in the first half, which I'd have thought he'd have eaten that chance up, and he missed this header from 6 yards out. Maybe it was nerves, I suppose, coming into it, making the way into the team ahead of Kane for this game. And essentially it's the audition to be Harry Kane's understudy, isn't it, really? But look, I mean, we got friendlies next summer. I think it's like against Brazil, and I can't remember the other team that we got like high profile friendlies before the actual tournament. So maybe I like Watkins, I'm hoping one day that he'll come to Arsenal. So, and he did score against Australia in the previous international games. So, that was just one player, really. But I look at it, one of the comments in the chat was saying this, and I do agree with it. But on the previous one, that we rely, a lot on Bellingham already, really, because when he was there before, we did well against Scotland, we did well against Italy, 2-3-1 wins. I think he's just like integral, the key man, the first name on the team sheet for me now. Obviously, he's playing for Real Madrid, scoring goals for them in the Champions League, La Liga. So we are very relying on him. But going back to Southgate, so I like to give a fair point of view, but I agree with some of the comments in chat. I agree with some of the comments on the forums that I read, that it's like I was watching the game last night, and it wasn't an easy watch. And the last 15 minutes, the subs are coming on. I'm thinking, Why is Calvin Phillips coming on? What is that going to achieve? You know, the only thing it's going to achieve is for him to get in the shop window for a team to buy him in January. We should be trying to win this game and going for it, and at least. Once again, Steve, I know you have no interest in England and you're not really that fussed about international, but I always feel sorry for the people that travel out there, or the people that went to Wembley on Friday.
I may not be interested directly in England, but I am interested in as to find out why, in your opinion, they're not doing well, or more specifically, they're not playing with flair, or, as you just mentioned, why he's bringing on Calvin Phillips. Who would you have brought on then instead of Calvin Phillips?
Well, at that point, we've got to be looking for more attacking options. I know he hasn't, it's kind of whatever options can we get on the bench that are going to come on. You have to forgive me. I know Rashford came on because he took a free kick that went miles wide. I know Phillips came on. Do you know what? The game was that boring. I can't even remember who else came on, but just an attacking option off the bench, mate, basically, not Calvin Phillips. And it's not anything against Calvin Phillips as a player. It's just, we need to be looking at attacking players that are going to change. And even like Friday's game against Malta, that was poor. I get it because we've already qualified, so that competitive edge is gone. And players don't want to get injured because we're in the club season and it's, they don't want to go back to the clubs injured. That makes, but put on a bit of a show, and it just doesn't bode well for next summer because the pressure is on England. When you look at it, we've got Harry Kane smashing it up for Bayern Munich, doing amazing. We've got Bellingham doing amazing for Real Madrid. Legitimately, these two players are tearing up their respective leagues that they're in. We've got Saka. I know he's been off form a bit recently, but he's still a top quality player. And there's other players within that team, Foden that has done so well for Man City in the past as well. So there's just something missing there. And I think, like you said, someone mentioned in the chat, I've always liked Lewis Dunk, and I thought he played quite well in the friendly against Scotland, and when we saw him before. But it's Maguire again, and it's not. I know it's easy targets like Maguire and this and that, but when you look at, Dunk's came into the squad. He's always been really good for Brighton. He came in, played for England. He's done well.
Isn't he injured though?
Oh, okay. I didn't realise that. So that's egg on my face. There you go.
Well, talking of egg on your face, I mean, you're talking about the attacking options to bring on. I mean, credit where credit's due for Southgate. He brought Harry Kane on for Watkins. He took Trent Alexander-Arnold off. I mean, admittedly, this is very late on in the game. This is like the 84th minute now. Calvin Phillips came on for Trent. Marcus Rashford came on for Grealish. And Cole Palmer came on for Saka. Now, me looking at this literally at a livescore.com on a mobile phone, that tells me that maybe Gareth Southgate left it a bit too late to change things up. Maybe he could have brought these attacking players on like Rashford and Cole Palmer on earlier. But on the bench, who's he going to take off? Like, he's already brought on the most attacking players. He's got Tomori, well, he ain't going to come on. Jordan Henderson, Gallagher, Konza. It's the only players he's got left to pick from. So really, he did actually make the attacking changes. But based on the fact that they scored in the 41st minute, and thanks to a 59th minute own goal from someone called Tanasov, really, it seems to me that maybe he should have brought on the likes of Rashford and maybe Kane or whatever, Cole Palmer, earlier on, and maybe that could have changed the game. Because you were mentioning against was it Malta, you said, wasn't it?
Yeah, on Friday night.
Yeah, when Cole Palmer came on, he looked a lot hungry and everything. And I actually asked you the question. I said, why isn't he starting Cole Palmer? What's the reason for him not to play?
Yeah.
And I'll ask you, why is Southgate not willing to play Cole Palmer against Malta?
I have no clue, because we know what, like, for example, I know Kane scored twice, but look, we know what Kane can do, right? And Cole Palmer's just come off the back of that amazing 4-4 draw with Man City. He scored the equaliser. It's like Roy the Rover stuff, isn't it? He scored the equaliser in the injury, right at the end of injury time, to get a point against his old club. Before, even just during the game, he's playing really well. Okay, he's a contender for man of the match. Ironically, with Sterling, who didn't get in the bloody squad, but I don't understand it, because when he came on, he was almost trying to do too much to make up for lost time in the sense that he didn't start the game, but he was taking on players. He was trying to be positive, like Rico Lewis last night. And I feel the referee last night was a joke with the decision for the penalty, because that was just it's just a disgrace, that decision. But at least once again, Lewis was getting on the ball, being positive, trying to make things happen. Some urgency, and these younger players, want to prove themselves for the national team and get in. Whereas the likes of Kane, Saka, we know what they can do, and if heaven forbid there are injuries next summer, players at the end of a long club season, we're going to need to see what some of these guys can do before the tournament, really. And I would have loved to see Cole Palmer start that game against Malta and just mix it up. And I think I can understand your frustrations that, in these games against, and this is no disrespect, because I think they underestimated North Macedonia. Like, I think it was yourself and Jason mentioned the North Macedonia game, the previous game. I think it was at Old Trafford, actually, saying like, "Oh, what a nothing game." But North Macedonia, like they showed last night, they're no mugs, because they scored twice against Italy last week on Friday. They've beaten Germany and Italy in competitive games in the last few years. And I think we just underestimated them, really, or we just didn't pay them the respect they deserved. And when you look at these players all playing, most of them, obviously apart from a couple of exceptions, playing in the Premier League for top clubs, we should be expecting a lot more. And it was the same against Ukraine when qualification wasn't already secure as well. It kind of feels like, we had a good performance against Italy at home. We had a really good performance in the first half away to Italy, and that typifies Southgate for me. In that first half away to Italy, we played great. Honestly, I was watching it, flowing football. We scored twice in that first half. Italy, it's a bit like, it was a bit like Arsenal where with Man City. It's always been a bogey team for us in the international game, right? We've always had trouble against Italy. I don't think I've ever seen us beat Italy in a competitive game. That's mad. But we went over that hoodoo. We beat them, okay? But the second half was murder, because we went ultra defensive. We backed off. And Italy just came at us, and they got a goal, and it was all frantic. And it was, a good win still. But I think for me, you're saying about substitutions, and obviously, yeah, you bought Cole Palmer, you bought Rashford on, that's fair enough. But I go back to that World Cup game, the knockout game. I think it's the quarter-final against France. It was obviously last November when the World Cup was, that we were covering on your channel. And yeah, it was like Rashford that particular season for Man United was on fire, and he was doing well in the World Cup. He was getting goals, but he didn't start him against France. And then he brought him on once again quite late, and he had that free kick that nearly went in, and it's just like, it's a bit similar to Arteta in the sense that he just seems to have his favourites and play his stalwarts that he sticks by, like your likes of Henderson and Maguire. And then you think to yourself, well, with this team, with the players in it, surely we should be going for it. And yeah, I just don't know. I like Southgate as a person. I like the way he talks. I like his pride in leading this country. I respect all of that. And he was a great defender and whatnot. But it's very, very frustrating. And I do think I respect him for what he did for us in the World Cup and the previous tournaments. But I say to myself, another manager, a better manager, could take us to that next level where we win a tournament, really. And that's where I'm coming from with all of this.
I just want to say thanks everybody for joining in live. I'm just going to read through a few comments here. Craig, just hear what you have to say, really. If any of these comments stand out for you. Craig Boy Crook saying, I blame Allardyce. His fault for letting Southgate in through the back door. Love him or hate him, 100 times better than Southgate, and I'm pretty sure would have won something with these players. What do you think on that comment there?
Say that again, sorry. It broke up a little bit.
I blame Allardyce, his fault for letting Southgate in through the back door. Love him or hate him, 100 times better than Southgate, and he probably would have won something by now with these players.
I don't know about Allardyce. He's the relegation specialist, although you could say that that's the opposite of Southgate. But, I mean, yeah, that was... I totally forgot about that. I mean, he had a 100% record for England, won us one game, and then... of course, there was that stuff with the newspaper, wasn't there, where he's prepared to take some money or something or whatnot. I just think there's other managers out there, but it is a bit of a poison chalice, the England job. I mean, Harry Dawson in chat making a great point. I'd completely forgot about this when he took Saka off after 60 minutes and he was tearing France up. He was having a brilliant game against France, and that was, the game. I mean, I'm looking at the chat then. Craig Boy Crook, what name that is. He was gifted with great draws in the World Cup and all that. That's an argument that I partially agree with, but I would say that knockout games against Germany, Sweden, and Colombia aren't easy games to win, and I will always argue that point, and I will respect him for the fact that we won those games. They're not easy games. They're tough games. They're not your elite Brazil, France level, but they're not easy games. So I don't ever think we should feel like we're entitled to win these high pressure knockout games against these nations, really. So I will put respect on his name for that. Talking about I think it's Dom in the chat saying name another manager. Chat Sport has come back with Bielsa, who's managing Uruguay, and of course during this international duty, Nunez has scored in both games despite not returning for Liverpool for our FPL teams. But yeah, I mean, it's who would want the job, isn't it, really? I mean, I would like Eddie Howe, but he's at Newcastle. He's doing a great job there. I doubt he'd want to leave that job with how much progress they've made. That would be my number one choice. And there's Potter as well, Graham Potter. I know things didn't work out for him at Chelsea, but so what, really? I think Graham Potter, as Com's saying in the chat as well. So those would be a couple of names. But once again, I do like to have a balanced view on things, and I do think we've had some good performances at tournaments, but there are key decisions that have, frustrated me at times. I think that certainly taking Saka off after 60 minutes, that was just a crazy decision. Not starting certain players, and I think it goes back to the final, isn't it, really? It's when you think about the Euro 2020 final that was played in the Euro 2021 against Italy at Wembley, of course. It was all set up for us, Steve-O, to win, with having home advantage. And I think it was Chiesa, one of Italy's main players, that went off injured early into the second half. And we started that game in those first... Obviously, Shaw scored after 6 minutes. We started great for those first 10 to 15 minutes. And then we just pegged back, went defensive. And I think that game, I've kind of tried to erase it out of my memory. I just felt absolutely gutted after that, because I thought to myself, that was the chance for England to actually win a tournament. It was all lined up for us, and we lost on penalties. So I do think with the players that we've got at our disposal, I know that France are going to be the favourites next summer. I just think somebody else could do a better job.
I think, like you say, with what you just said regarding the final last time round and whatnot, it just reminds me of Dyche for Burnley and how it was, we're actually playing flair football. Bloody hell, we're 1-0 up against Man United. Let's go for the jugular. They're there for the taking. Oh, you're just going to sit back and then invite pressure. And then the more pressure that builds up, eventually they will get their opportunity to score a goal, which eventually is what Man United would do, or in this specific case, Italy or France, whoever, eventually go and get the goal, and it then ends up going to penalties, or they're winning the game in extra time, or whatever the circumstances may be. I just think that, do you think it's just, this is like, for Southgate, just like almost like a dog that's on its last legs, and it's just like, it just feels cruel for letting this dog continue living, and it's just like, look, we need to call the vet in now and just kind of let the dog
it's not gonna happen,
let dog down.
Stevo, it's not going to happen. And
why? Okay, why isn't it going to happen?
Because, like one of the guys in chat said, he is like the yes man for the FA. He's the safe option, and I don't like saying all this as well. And I think I came on stream last winter after the World Cup, and you guys were talking a bit about the World Cup. And I think you were both, like, you and Jason had this nice conversation about it, reflecting on it. And you were both more or less saying England played well, and it was just a narrow defeat against France, who got to the final and lost on penalties. And I think I came on, and I admitted that I was wrong about Southgate at the time. So nothing will give me better pleasure than coming on, a stream, a member stream, whatever, at the end of next summer and saying, yeah, I was wrong. I'd love that. I'd absolutely love that, to be proven wrong. But it's just these key decisions and these squad selections that are giving me a headache. And like I say, it's just too much caution. I get that international football is different to club football because, say for Arsenal, for example, we have 38 games in the Premier League. We lose a game, but there's always next week. This is, with international football, the main thing that matters is the tournaments, really. And obviously the qualifiers matter as well. But let's be honest here, we always seem to qualify. I know we didn't qualify in 2008, but that's when it really matters, when we're playing against the sort of top European or teams in the world where, you have 3 games in a group. If you lose one game, you're in trouble. If you lose a knockout game, that's it, and you've got to wait another 2 years for a game that really matters against a big team. Which is different to club football, where, for example, Man City, obviously they lost against us, lost against Wolves, but now they're back on fire because it's a league format. So it is different. So I suppose to a degree, you have to be pragmatic, but I just, like you always said to me, play to your strengths. And we do have, those offensive options when you look at it, with Saka, with Kane, with Foden, with Bellingham, and lots of other options as well, sort of with the, with Trippier, obviously our fullbacks as well. That's been such an amazing asset in FPL for the last couple of years. Obviously Kyle Walker. And yeah, I just think the players are there for us to really have a go. When you look at, I know you don't follow the international game much at all, but when you look at it, obviously France are that team that you're going to be afraid of, and maybe Spain, obviously they'll be a team to consider as well. But I think we got the players to match them, and I just would like to see us just go for it. And if we fall out and we've had a go, then that's fair enough. But if we go out in a whimper, that's not good enough. And I just hope and pray that I will be proven wrong next summer. But I think there's going to be a lot more pressure on Southgate in comparison to previous tournaments, and just particularly considering how well these top players are doing for their clubs in different countries. It's going to be different if we fall down and we get a surprise defeat by a team that we're not expected to play. Well, we're not expected to lose against, basically.
Sadly, this has happened for years with England, though, hasn't it? It's X, Y, and Z players performing exceptionally well for whatever teams, whether it's abroad or in the Premier League, and then when they come to England, it's almost like they've got the shackles on, they're handcuffed, they're not allowed to express themselves like they would be able to for the likes of Man City, Chelsea, Real Madrid, whomever they're playing for. And certainly this whole thing regarding like Harry Kane constantly starting and stuff. I mean, do you personally just get sick to death of Kane playing all the time, and do you wish like the likes of Watkins are given more of an opportunity rather than just like a one-off game where it's just like, oh well, you perform really shit, let's just that experiment's failed, we're now going to play Kane in the next game? Or do you think actually no, let Watkins play the next game, whenever that is? Well, I don't even think it's going to be for another 4 months, but
yeah, the friendlies, I mean, I think it's not going to do his confidence great, is it? I mean, one of the guys in chat saying, what about the last international break against Italy? I said, I don't know whether it was on the previous one, but I said we played well against Italy. We played the free-flowing football, Bellingham flourished, and that made me so happy to see that. And I think on the back of that performance, I would expect, and you say it means nothing, whatever else, but it means a lot to those people that travelled out to North Macedonia or watched it last night, spent their time and their money to watch the game. And we should have pride as a nation to put in a performance with the players at our disposal to win the match. And credit to North Macedonia for getting the point and playing well for their country. But, without Bellingham, it seems we got a bit of a problem because there wasn't the fluidity in there. But yeah, I mean, coming back to it, it's just, I've got a bit sidetracked now, but it is, I just think that there's a lot of potential there, put it that way. And we have to take this chance while we've got it, because, in a couple of years' time, some of the players might, sort of, obviously Kane will be getting a bit older. And yeah, I think it would have been good for Kane to stay on that bench, actually, and Watkins to get his chance in that second half, because if, heaven forbid, Kane gets injured, we need a backup that we're confident in, really, and just to give these players a chance, really. But I mean, I'll throw it back to you. Would you be more interested in like following England if they actually gave players a chance based on form, rather than just the fact that players that belong to a top 6 club get in the squad based on name alone?
The simple answer is yes. If I was to find out, for argument's sake, that Watkins was starting, I'm not saying in the international tournament itself, because I appreciate the fact that, look, we need to play the likes of Kane because he's a world-class striker, for crying out loud. Like, I'm not naive to go, no, Watkins is doing well in the Premier League. Well, he's doing well, but compared to Kane scoring a record amount of goals for Bayern Munich in the first 16 games or whatever it was, and you're not going to drop Harry Kane because of that. But certainly when it comes to like the friendlies, or even the group stages, where we don't need to directly win per se, we just need to put in a good performance. I think that I would be then kind of interested with the likes of, say, Cole Palmer, given an opportunity, Jared Bowen, to name two, given this opportunity to perform for England at the highest level, albeit being like friendlies, or in like group matches, which are kind of easy enough with the quality of player that we would have to beat, I don't know, like the likes of Macedonia or whoever. But yeah, I just find like you state, it's just seeing the same bloody names every single time you see an England team, first team announce. You just roll your eyes like nothing's changed. It's just the same team that played 10 years ago, for crying out loud. It's just grim, to be honest with you. And this is what you want. It's called adaptation, isn't it? It's called evolvement. And if you're not really willing to evolve, you're just going to get stuck.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, obviously we've got Penguin in chat and a couple of others talking about Watkins and just agreeing that, taking him off would have dented his confidence. Bad management, says Craig. And then Calvin FPL, obviously aka Penguin, saying, Watkins for Villa is a beast. Watkins for England is a bit meh. He's playing under a very good manager, Unai Emery, of course, our old boy. He's doing very, very well for Villa, and better tactics from Emery too. Southgate is too defensive, and I think that's the point, really. He is too defensive. You other people may argue, well, hold on a minute, and I love to reference this team. Obviously, the Greece team of 2004 that won Euro 2004 in Portugal, that had quite a defensive team. It was like the George Graham days of Arsenal, whereby it was 1-0 to the Arsenal and it was 1-0 to the Greece of just defensive, and they had I don't know if anyone in the chat's going to remember the name of the striker for Greece, but they had a tall striker and they played a certain style of football. They were so solid defensively, just like Arsenal were back in the day, and relying on like Alan Smith or Ian Wright, and it worked. But once again, going back to that Arsenal team, that Greece team, their strengths were their defence. Our strengths are not our defence, because we've seen it before, but our strengths are our attack. So let's play to our attack. I'm not saying Kevin Keegan, Newcastle 95-96 gung-ho, but I wouldn't mind it. I think Kevin Keegan's retired from international management now after his spell before for us. But the fact of the matter is that Southgate's our man next summer. I'll back him, obviously, because I want the team to do well. And do you know what? Do you know what as well, Steve? I'll look forward to all these people that moan about the so-called international break coming out of the closet, and next minute during the summer, the glory hunters putting on their England shirts, pretending to be the greatest England fans of all time. When it comes to these nitty-gritty qualifying games, they don't care, and they confess that they hate the international break. And then as soon as it becomes the tournament and the glamorous stuff, they're the biggest England fan ever.
Yeah,
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sadly, I think that happens with it all. Really, people get caught up in the hype. I think people get sick of the international football because it's interrupting the club football, and to go even one step further, certainly in this world of fantasy football, we get sick of it because it's, oh my god, I've just had 3 green arrows in a row, and now we have to wait for another 2 weeks until the next game week. Oh god, it's England versus Macedonia. Oh god, it's England versus Malta. Oh, for crying out loud, I don't care. All I care about is the fact that whether the Brentford's game against Arsenal is going to be a good opportunity to be bringing in Mbeumo or Jesus or whatever. And then when it comes to like summer, usually the tournament is what, June-ish? June, July?
Yeah,
any tournament?
Sort of time.
Yeah, so you kind of had like, the May, end of the Premier League, which is usually about the 5th of May, 10th of May, something like that. Then you get like the FA Cup final, then the following week is the Champions League, and then you got like a 2-3 week break before the international tournament, whether it's the World Cup or the Euros. And then it's just, oh my god, football's back. Oh, I love England. And it's like, but hold on a minute here. I know for fact, specifically, you came out and said, I do not care about England during the international breaks. And yeah, it will be frustrating for, like you say, proper fans of England like yourself, who do watch every single England match. You do support the team. You go out your way to go to pubs or wherever to enjoy watching it, whereas there's a lot of people out there that, rightly or wrongly, that they say they don't enjoy it, but then when it comes to, like you say, the actual main event, it's like, oh my god, I'm their biggest fan.
I mean, to a degree, I get it. I would rather it was the Premier League than the international games, because it's just more exciting when it comes to these games. And this is no disrespect, obviously, but like against teams that we were expected to be. And we were expected to be, well, we didn't last night. But yeah, no, I get it. I mean, like after Chelsea Man City, like an amazing game, it's a bit of a come down, isn't it? And I totally respect that. But my counter argument, or not counter argument, but my perspective on it is yeah, but I can wait another couple of weeks till the Premier League comes back. It's not the end of the world for one weekend. But I do realise it kind of breaks up the momentum of FPL and club football and whatnot, and can be a little bit irritating. And I I do understand it that obviously in the summer, people going to the pubs and they're just the fair weather fans, aren't they? Really, but I think a friend of mine did make a good point a few years ago. He said, "Look, this is the only chance. He's got kids, settled down, and all that. It's just like really, we don't go out anymore." He said, and this is the only chance we get to go to the pub, an excuse to actually go to the pub and watch the football, support England, and just have an evening out because we've got other responsibilities. So there is that way to look at it as well. And I've always liked that atmosphere of it, where it kind of brings everyone together, and everyone's kind of supporting the same team. Well, most of the time, anyway, supporting the same team and getting involved with it. So I think a part of me as well, as much as I love like Premier League, Champions League, and whatnot, is I think I enjoy seeing it's just basically here's the best of our country against the best of your country, rather than all about transfer fees and all about. I know obviously there's money in international football because of where the tournaments are hosted, but yeah, it's just more simple in that sense. And a friend of mine, Will Ratcliffe, obviously that well from school and whatnot. He actually just says, "Look, I just prefer the international break, and I prefer lower league club football, really, because there's just so much money in the sort of top elite club football leagues that it just feels really disengaged from it, particularly for his team, Man United, and how the Glazers have run the club and various other things." And he just says, "Oh, it's just Man City win the league every season, and PSG have got an insane amount of money, Newcastle and whatnot." And he just prefers watching lower league football, club football, and international games.
Talking of club football, actually, Dan, you're doing really well in the FPL world at the moment. You're top of the Torbay Elite. Jason made a point last night, actually, that is this the first time you've ever been top of the Torbay Elite League?
I think so, man. Yeah, probably.
What's going right this season then? Because everything you seem to do. I mean, last week you got an incredible 99-point haul. You are doing, like I said, you're doing very, very well this season. Everything you seem to touch is turning to gold. You're clearly enjoying doing a bit more content with myself and Jason of late. What's going on? What's the story behind the story?
Just enjoying watching football, mate, and not taking it too seriously. I know that's a frustrating answer for people to hear, but honest to God, the thing is, Steve, I know more than likely this won't last. I'm just enjoying it while it does, really. And I don't overconsume too much content with FPL. I'm just watching match of the day, trying not to make any crazy decisions, and I'm just going with the flow of it, really. I just, it's trying not to overanalyze too much. Oh, what about this? What about that? And if it, that there's been the previous game week, I got 18 points, but I didn't panic. I suppose really, when you have one bad game week, it's easy to panic and start. I played my wild cards. Since like game week 8 now, I can't remember specifically, but I played that. That went okay, and yeah, I just watch the football and I just make it based on that, really. But I know there's going to be double game weeks, blank game weeks, all this bollocks, and not so much bollocks for the double game weeks, but all these like when the fixture congestion piles up towards the end of the season, and you got to get a spreadsheet out and do this, that, and the other, and that's probably where I'll fall apart. But I'm just going with my gut, Steve-O, and I just enjoy it whilst it lasts, and know that if I have a bad game week, there's always another one, really.
Yeah, at the moment you've got 3 flags in your team. It's looking most likely that of the 3, Matoma, Bowen and Haaland, Matoma's the one that's almost certainly not going to be playing against Nottingham Forest. I think they've got up next. Bowen, it's looking... Well, listening into FPL Juice earlier, there was a potential report that they're thinking that he may miss the Burnley game. I don't think that's the case. I think it is just an international injury. And we know Haaland's just an international injury, but with Matoma, he was a problem full stop. I think Brighton in general seem to be all over the place at the moment. They don't win, they don't lose, they just seem to draw all the time. But De Zerbi seems to be a manager who, by all accounts, is more focused on doing well in the Europa League than bothering about the Premier League, because he knows that with the Premier League he's going to stay up no matter what. He's got a quality side to compete, staying in the Premier League. And, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute they're going to be fighting relegation, but, ending anywhere between 13th and 9th, he'll be happy with, so long as it means that within the Europa League that they're performing to a higher standard, and that they're getting through to the knockout stages, and then maybe progressing through onto the quarterfinals, semi-finals, etc. So I think for you, maybe Matoma is the one to certainly be looking at to move out. I know you said on the voice message that you haven't really looked at FPL, which I do respect and everything, but is any immediate thought processes regarding who to get rid of Matoma for?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? This is the nice part of the break, I suppose, really, is to have a break from the FPL. I'm just bringing my team up on screen, up on my phone now, and yeah, Matoma. That is, he in the last couple of game weeks has just not well. We got a return against Everton, but apart from that, blanked against Sheffield United. Yeah, lots of draws, like I said for Brighton before. Blanked against Fulham. Man City, okay, fair enough. Liverpool, but there's it's been, apart from that 14-point haul in game week 6 at home to Bournemouth and a 3-1 win, kind of flat to deceive, really. 50% chance of playing. So, in a very long-winded way to answer your question, I'd have 6.8 million in the bank. Okay. I did look at this before the. I've got a couple of options. So we got Mbeumo, who's obviously up against my boys on Saturday at 5:30. So that'll be interesting. And then Luton, that's a nice run of games, isn't it? Luton, Brighton away, Sheffield United away. I'm saying they'll be easy, but that's a consideration. I know a lot of people are thinking about that as well. There's also Diaby as well, which could be worth a punt, but okay, Tottenham away. Tottenham aren't on the best of form in the last couple of games with their defensive injuries, and Bournemouth away, it's a good fixture. Then it's obviously Man City and us at home in the 15 and 16, so those are tougher games. So there's no easy answer, really, Steve.
I just realised that it wasn't Bowen in your team, it's McGinn. You've got McGinn, who's yellow flagged. I don't know what the issue is with McGinn. Again, I'm assuming it's an international problem. But doubling up Diaby and McGinn?
No, I was just going back to McGinn, actually. I don't think McGinn's, based on his character, I don't think he's an international injury kind of guy. I think if he's fit, he plays for Scotland, really. So, yeah, that's a bit of a concern, because he was a differential that paid off, wasn't he, in game week 12? It's just gone with the 10-point haul, and 8 points in game week 10, 5 in game week 9. It's doing bloody good, really. 5 and 7, when you look at that, he's returning game week 7, 9, 10 and 12, but that's all academic if he doesn't play in the next game week. So yeah, I've got some time to consider it. I look at my team now, and there's a few things that do concern me, but yeah, that's not an easy one. I can't get Sterling in because he's 6.9. Yeah, it's all a bit of a headache now, really. So thanks for bringing me back to the world of FPL after a nice relaxing break.
This is the thing, isn't it? It's one of those where, like you say, the international break kind of takes your mind off FPL unless you consume fantasy football content, which a lot of people that are watching this do, whereas there are people like yourself which legitimately don't consume anything and just literally do focus on yourself, your work, the international football itself. And then obviously when it comes back to the week building up to the Friday or the Saturday, whenever the deadline is, it's like, oh dear, I haven't looked at my team and I've got X, Y and Z players out. I mean, like I say, you're doing very, very well this season. Everything you seem to be touching is to gold. I mean, as a rival, I would probably just advise you just get Mbeumo, get it done.
Yeah, as a rival. Although you did help with Saliba before, in the previous one against. God, my memory's gone. I can't even remember Arsenal's last game. How bad is that? It was against Burnley. Your team, bloody hell! How can I forget that? But that's a is 6.8. That will be a decent switch. That will be the logical move. So that could potentially happen. But I'm just looking defensively. Obviously, I've got Cash away to Spurs, Saliba away to Brentford, Tsimikas again away to Man City, Harry away to Burnley. So defensively, it's like, okay, I'm not massively confident of clean sheets from any of my defensive options, really. But and then obviously Colwill on the bench. Would he play? It could just be one of those game weeks, Steve, whereby you have to kind of suck it up. Really, I'm looking at myself. I'm not feeling massively confident, but yeah, obviously, really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to Premier League coming back. The Premier League break returns, and we got Liverpool, Man City, which I'm sure will be a cracking game to sort of resume the club football back again.
Yeah, I think City will have the edge on that. Usually, you always back Man City at home. If it was at Anfield, I'd probably give the edge to Liverpool, to be honest with you. I think this, you've got two teams in Man City and Liverpool that when it comes to home, you do not back against them. Ironically, a bit like Nottingham Forest at the moment, because Nottingham Forest is a team in which I'm looking at to potentially listen out for regarding team news involving Man City, and if I find out Alvarez isn't playing, I'm looking at bringing in a one knee. Dan, what are you thinking on my thoughts regarding that? I will thank Brian for bringing his name into the fold. Their fixtures are looking really, really good. He's come back from injury, and yeah, I just think it's a nice swap in for Alvarez, Dan.
Bringing in who?
Awoniyi, the Nottingham Forest striker. Awoniyi, as I like to call him.
Oh, yes, I see. I thought, who's he talking about? I've never heard of this player. Yeah, decent. I mean, Alvarez has been a source of frustration for me. I know he got 5 points, obviously, against Chelsea in the last game week. But prior to that, if we look at it game week 8, 10 and 11, he got 2 points in each game week. Obviously, he got 9 against Brighton. But yeah, he's been playing a little bit deeper and stuff, and I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at let's take him out now. Let's just copy your transfer live whilst we're here now. But yeah, it seems like a decent. I had him in before actually. I can't pronounce his name either, but you're probably pronouncing it right. But when we look at the fixtures and how well he's done this season prior to all of that, I think it's a decent shout, to be fair. Like he was on fire, wasn't he? At the start of the season, game week 1 to 5, he was returning each game week in the form of his life, and then had a bit of a dip, but he did return obviously against West Ham in that 3-2 game prior to the international break. So yeah, not a bad shout. I mean, what about Darwin Nunez, more combat man? What are you thinking about him?
I can't get him in. Ideally, I'd love to get Watkins, but I can't get him in either. So I've got to look for someone that's around the 6.5 mark, because the plan is pretty much to do. So I've already brought in Bowen. That was last week, Sunday, I think it was. But it would definitely be potentially, if let's just say we hear Alvarez isn't starting against Liverpool, it's like, right, I'll get Awoniyi in for Alvarez, just get that done. That's a -4, and then the following week, it'll be Mbuemo in for Louise and Nketiah out for Bournemouth's Semenyo. I'll never play the Semenyo, but at least he's like ticking over with starts and whatnot. And yeah, my midfield would then be Son, Mbuemo, Martinelli, along with Salah and Bowen. But this Martinelli injury, I'm assuming that's another international injury. Plus, I found out today on FPL Juice that Jesus has actually started for Brazil. Now, I made a point on a members video that if Jesus was to start for Brazil in one of these matches, does Arteta then go, right, if he's fit enough to play for Brazil, then he can come straight back into the Arsenal team against Brentford? Or does he just stick with the same front three of Trossard, Martinelli and Saka versus Brentford, which is, I'm assuming he would do, because I don't think this Martinelli injury is a serious one for him not to be playing against Brentford.
Just a precautionary method. Yeah, I mean, he did score actually for Brazil last week. I think it was against Uruguay.
Who's this, Martinelli?
Yeah, he scored in like the first few minutes actually. But then
so he was fit then. Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, he played against Uruguay. It just piqued my interest because I saw that Nunez. This is the thing, you can't fully switch off from FPL during the international break because Nunez scored against Brazil and Argentina in 2 games, and it's a bit different in South America because things as friendlies when these teams get along together. Do you know what I mean? It's a proper tussle with the rivalry and whatnot. Actually managed by Marco Bielsa as well, Uruguay, obviously ex-Leeds manager who was excellent for Leeds a couple of years ago in the Premier League and whatnot. But yeah, as far as I know, I mean, maybe Martinelli played the first game, he scored. He didn't play in the second game. Maybe they just said, look, this is, you've got a bit of an injury flag. We don't want to risk you, and we want a good curation with Arsenal, so let's just rest you and try and have a player for this game. But yeah, if Jesus does play for Brazil, maybe he could come back against Brentford. But Trossard scored for Belgium. Admittedly, it was against Azerbaijan, no disrespect, on Sunday evening, and Lukaku got 4 goals. But I've really enjoyed seeing Trossard play for Arsenal of late because, as you know, I really like the player. And maybe Arteta will think, right, okay, he's played for Brazil during the week, long journey back. Trossard's obviously, maybe played for Belgium, but that's not such a long journey. Trossard's been playing well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it for now. Just ease Jesus back in, I'd say.
Well, that's pretty much what I predicted on the members stuff. I just said, look, I would expect that, he gets a few minutes against Brentford, I don't know, like the last 20 minutes or so, just to kind of prove his fit. And this was based on the fact that if he was to play for Brazil, which he has done, gets 20 minutes against Brentford, and then the following match against, I believe it's Wolves, you've got after that. At that point, it's, okay, do we then bring on Jesus again as an impact sub, but rather than 20 minutes, make it 30 minutes? Or do we start him? And especially with these quick turnover of fixtures where you have, not only is it a Saturday fixture, but there's followed by a Tuesday fixture against Luton. And then, of course, then the following Saturday, you are then up against Aston Villa away, which, these are 3 really important fixtures. I mean, when you look at Arsenal this season, you have done extremely well. You've only lost 3 times, Dan, would you believe? I don't know if you know that, but you've lost 3 times in all competitions this season. You have won predominantly the majority of them. You don't seem to draw many fixtures either. And I think Arteta, within reason, is managing his squad really, really well. And the fixtures that you've lost in, you're talking the Champions League game away at Lens. You lost to Newcastle 1-0, but then again, who doesn't? And then you lost in that pathetic game against West Ham in the League Cup. But obviously there's news that Odegaard is potentially coming back as well, which is going to be a big plus for you guys. I've just seen Brian saying as well that this a one knee is flagged and potentially injured. I mean, you couldn't make it up, to be honest with you. But yeah, it does seem to be another season of positivity for you lot, Dan. But those 3 fixtures in such a short turnaround, 3 games in the space of 7 days, 1 home game, 2 away games, the away games being Luton, Aston Villa, and then in the Champions League you're away at PSV Eindhoven, and then you're at home to Brighton. These are just coming quick, thick and fast, and I think that Arteta is going to be seriously asking questions of his forward players. And I mean, how many minutes does the likes of Saka get? I mean, I would assume he plays pretty much every single bloody minute. But if you were to rest Saka in any one of those games, I'm assuming you'd be thinking probably Luton.
Yeah, it was on the tip of my tongue there. Yeah, Luton. I mean, we've done well this season, really. Like you said, just to lose that 1 Premier League game against, they've all been away games as well in tough sort of atmospheres and whatnot. The West Ham game was pathetic. I'd rather never remember that game or see it again. But yeah, hopefully with Odegaard, Jesus coming back, that's going to be a big bonus. We come off the back of a win before the break, and I'm really looking forward to seeing us back in action, obviously getting back to it. And yeah, but we're gonna, with those games coming thick and fast after the international games, we're gonna have to rotate and be clever with our squads. We've had injuries this season which have been frustrating, but there's no need to rush these players back in. But Brentford away under the floodlights, on Saturday evening, that is going to be a very, very, very tough game. We played them already in the League Cup, when actually we played, obviously a sort of bit of a mixture of a second string / first team, whatnot, but we got a 1-0 win. And what is interesting, what I was reading about before we started, is since Raya's come into the fold and become our number 1, the only game, there's 2 games that Ramsdale's played, obviously away to Brentford and then away to West Ham. But because we've obviously got Raya on loan, good old Ramsdale, who didn't play for England in those 2 games, which is another thing back to our original point of discussion. But then Ramsdale's not playing for us. He'll be playing on Saturday, more than, presumably. So that'll be an interesting one to see how Ramsdale is a proper thing that's constantly in the media. And David Seaman coming out today and saying he's too good to be a number 2, and that if he wants to play for England next summer, he needs to move on in January, despite the fact that Seaman's helping coach the goalkeepers in an informal role at Arsenal, which is a bit strange to be coming out and saying that. But obviously David Seaman's England and Arsenal legend, so can't say anything against him.
Well, you've just mentioned the January transfer window. Denver was asking about Ivan Toney potentially going to you lot.
I mean, I'd love that. Listen, I mean, we need another striking option that's going to get goals, and Ivan Toney's your man, really. But there's talk about he feels like he owes Brentford something. Chelsea will be interested. It would be ironic getting Toney to Arsenal because of what he said. Do you remember, obviously, the documentary on Amazon Prime, All or Nothing with Arsenal, when Brentford beat us 2-0 when they first came back in the Premier League, and Ivan Toney tweeted out a nice little kick around with the boys, and Arteta showed it to the squad before the home game and the reverse fixture later in the season. Do you remember that moment?
I'm afraid I don't know. No, I don't.
Yeah, but it was quite funny, and obviously it's been a little bit in the press since. And Tony's had his call up for England and whatnot. We're talking about understudies for Kane. We're talking about strikers in the Premier League that deliver goals. It'd be perfect for Arsenal, but I don't know. For me, it's a frustration of we got a great player in Declan Rice who, during these games for England was marauding forward and had a goal disallowed on Friday, which was quite strange. He hit the post with a long-range shot, and I'd like to see him doing more of this for Arsenal, really. But he's been excellent since we got him, and that's been an excellent signing. Timber was just ironically injured against Nottingham Forest and really unlucky, but he looked really good in pre-season and at the start of the season, but fortunately suffered a very bad injury. But I don't need to. I don't know how well whether Havertz played for Germany during these games, whether he put in a good performance. But prior to the break, he didn't play well against you guys, and I don't mean to hack out with the guy all the time because he's here and you want to get behind him, but I just think we should have used that money for a strike, and I just hope that we do it in January, but I just don't think we will.
No, nor do I. Quick question from myself here regarding the back line of Arsenal. Obviously, Raya is number one. I know he can't play against Brentford, but he is going to be number one. Saliba is the absolute nailed centre-back. Pretty much along with Gabriel. That's pretty much a sorted combination, would you say, Dan? Or is there still competition from this Key War or whatever his bloody name is?
Yeah, I can never pronounce that guy's name either. I think your initial selection sounds pretty solid, really. I think Kiwa or Kiwa or Quinoa or however you bloody say it is more of a player that will come in for the games against the sort of teams near the sort of lower end of the table, or the cup games or whatnot, or in the last 20 minutes of a fixture to see things out, really.
What's the circumstances surrounding Tomiyasu and Zinchenko? I would have thought Zinchenko was the number one pick, but by all accounts, he seems to have lost his place to Tomiyasu.
Well, Tomiyasu is a very solid player, really. He's a very solid defender. He's come in, he got a goal recently, and it's his first goal for Arsenal, and he's solid at international level by all accounts. And yeah, I think Zinchenko, he offers a lot to the team in terms of his technical abilities. I believe he plays in midfield at international level, but defensively, Zinchenko sometimes gets caught out. I have that doubt about him. I mean, obviously we loaned Tierney out, who's got injured, unfortunately, at Real Sociedad, but I just think Tomiyasu is the more solid defensive option, really, and he has been doing different things with the defence this season. At one point, he was playing party at right back right at the start of the season. Gabriel was benched and all this, and he's been trying to figure it out. When I was watching AFTV a few weeks ago, they were one of the guys on there who's really clever and really has some interesting insights, was making the point that Arteta just wants us to be more solid, quite simply, this season, and not so open like we were towards the end of last season. Letting him free at home to Southampton and 2 away to West Ham when we were 2-0 up, for God's sake. So, yeah, I think maybe he's just gone with the more solid defensive option. There's a long-winded answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, you do like to keep a clean sheet. You've had a clean sheet against Sevilla. You beat Sheffield United 5-0. You had a 1-0 victory against Man City, 4-0 against Bournemouth, 1-0 against Brentford. Like you just mentioned, in the League Cup against PSV, 4-0. Arsenal beating Everton 1-0. Yeah, you've had quite a few clean sheets in there. And I just think that Arsenal are one of those teams where, from a FPL perspective, we had a caller on last night who's thinking of bringing in Saka for Son. What do you think on that move, Saka in for Son?
Well, I mean, obviously, whatnot with Maddison with his injury and seemed to affect Son's performance against Wolves. Saka, like I said, I was watching him for England last night. He was certainly trying, but the defender who used to play for Leeds, actually, whose name completely Alioski. I don't know if he still plays for. I don't think he still plays for Leeds, but played quite well against him. And even just in recent games, he's not been playing as well. But it's Saka, he'll come back, and I wouldn't be surprised if he returns, against Brentford, and we've got a decent set of fixtures after that, even though they do come in a short space of time. So, yeah, makes a lot of sense to do that move, really.
Yeah, I think over the next, just to let the audience know, I think over the next few weeks it is going to be as normal, a very busy period of Elite FPL streaming. So make sure you're staying tuned. Make sure that you're hitting the subscribe button, the notification button if you are completely brand new around here, because we are going to be very, very busy with a lot of the content that's going to be coming quick, thick and fast as we approach the busy Christmas period. Dan, I think we can close out on that really there. Is there any more further thoughts on upcoming FPL weekend? I know we've got a preview on Friday. I'm guessing me and Jason will be streaming, or any other thoughts basically before we go to bed?
Yeah, no, just thanks obviously again for having me on. Thanks for everyone that's tuned in. Appreciate being able to moan about England, but I think I feel pretty good now. I've got that off my chest, and I'm looking forward to the Premier League resuming. Then I can get stressed out about Arsenal instead, and my team now with all those flags in my team that you've pointed out to me. But yeah, just appreciate being on again. Thanks to everyone that's chipped in with their thoughts on FPL and England and all the various things. And yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
No, thank you. I mean, I cannot believe that's been an hour and 10 minutes. Do you know, me and Jason were saying that last night, you know, when we finished streaming, you know, we were on for 2 hours and 20 minutes, and the time just, it vanishes. But I think that it's key to the conversation pieces that you're having, or the thought processes that you're having back and forth with whoever you're talking to and whatnot. And certainly 2 hours, 20 minutes just disappearing like that is just a credit to, you know, the individuals that are participating in the show. And certainly I just want to say thanks for coming on, and as ever you're more than welcome to come on whenever, preferably with a camera, Dan.
Yeah, cameras are good. In the
cameras are good. We'll get there's a quote on the back. There we are, Tyler. Something for you to put on the poster. Cameras are good.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, I'll have to look into that technology definitely at some point.
So thanks everybody for tuning in live, and anybody watching on the replay, making sure that you're hitting the like button, hit the subscribe button, making sure that you are enjoying the content. If you are, and you are new around here, make sure you're hitting the subscribe button. There will be the members video that I recorded today is out tomorrow, the usual time at 12 o'clock when it goes public. As ever, it's just answering members' opinions, feedback and whatnot. Today's video is mainly me talking about my transfers, going into a bit more detail than what I did earlier on, but it looks like it's already been scuppered with Awoniyi being injured already. Brilliant. On that note, myself and Jason will be back with you on Friday, I guess, for the preview. We'll be doing our predictions and all that nonsense, and certainly I'm assuming that if the members keep commenting on the videos, which to be honest they haven't really done today, but if the members continue doing the comments, the more members videos come out publicly as well. So make sure you stick around watching them, because they come out every day pretty much at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Cheers everybody, and cheers Dan.
Cheers guys, take care.